We've officially been in Scottsdale for 3 weeks, and when we first came here, we sought out to see if this was a good spot where we wanted to live full time. So now we have some concluding thoughts. In the aftermath of the pandemic, my husband Martin and I wanted to make a change from living in Seattle, and we contemplated moving to its polar opposite, Arizona. We spent 3 weeks in the Grand Canyon State to experience winter in Arizona and figure out if we should move to Arizona. So what did we decide? Follow this mini-series to find out.
That's right. We went and examined all the points that we wanted to check out and evaluate whether this is a good place for us in particular. And we made that video. You can see what we thought about, and we can go over each of these points now and think about what we ended up finding out.
So the first point, probably the one that really sticks out in my mind the most, is the walkability. If you look up like the walkability scores for Scottsdale, they're actually pretty low, and I think that's because those charts are measuring walkability in terms of walking to a grocery store, walking to your job, kind of like the urban cores, and definitely Scottsdale is not that way, but it still does have a lot of walking paths, but more for health and for leisure.
Right, so it's not a place where you can do all your business on foot like we have been doing in Seattle often. If you live in the central part there, you can do just about anything you want. Here, forget about it, right? The distances are very long, and it's just miles and miles, you can't get there. However, on the flip side, and that is valuable, is they've thought it out and they've made at least Scottsdale, but many other parts, very nicely designed for walking. And I think that metric really satisfies us. I'm pretty happy with how walkable it is when you realize it's so for leisure, it's not so for doing work.
So there's walking paths, and there's also lots of hiking trails, there's lots of nature all around the Phoenix and Scottsdale area. Depending on how you perceive nature and what kind of nature you're looking for, it may or may not suit your tastes, but I think we both are actually pretty impressed with the desert environment here. It definitely was not as dry or as desolate as you might think when you think of a desert.
Yeah, and I am especially impressed with how many nature parks they have within the city. It's just fantastic. So when it comes to walking around, it actually passes even though you do have to own a car. The next big point we wanted to look into was whether the housing and the neighborhoods here are good. And we went to all the interesting ones. What do you think about that?
I think definitely there's probably more housing here. It sounds like Seattle goes through, shortages. I think a lot of cities do because they're really desirable areas. But here we do have a lot of housing in the Phoenix and Scottsdale area, and all kinds of different budgets and lifestyles depending on what you're looking for.
And when you look into what your money buys, it is very, very much better than what you get in Seattle in particular. If you compare our townhouse to a property here, you would get a huge yard, a pool, an outdoor kitchen with grill and fireplace, and inside is like 3,000 to 4,000 square feet, and it's in Scottsdale, the best part of town. Instead, in Seattle, you get 2,000 square feet, no yard, and you know how that goes. Overall, they have designed everything very, very well. It's thought out, and all their spaces, all their housing, all their neighborhoods, everything is just, you see how it's been touched with intent, right? It hasn't just been let organically or cheaply be made.
Yep.
So that part is very impressive.
So another point that was pretty important to us was infrastructure. And when we say that, we're thinking more of just like city planning and just how everything flows and also how it looks design-wise. And so far, I mean, there may be a few traffic jams we got into, but they really weren't that bad. Seattle traffic has gotten apocalyptic over the past few years, and there's really no chance of it getting any better. I read some stat that, Scottsdale and Phoenix actually have pretty low traffic rates, but the only trade-off is that you do spend more time in your car because the city is just so much bigger, so you inevitably have to drive further. But yeah, they don't have as many choke points as they do in other cities.
Yeah, we spent 3 weeks here. We did drive a lot, and you want to go to breakfast. If you really want what you want to get, it's like 12 miles, 15 miles, 20 miles, It's like, and you start thinking in different terms. It's like, because the traffic does move fast, you're like, oh, 2 miles just around the corner. in Seattle, 2 miles would take you like 20 minutes.
Oh gosh, yeah, I've been in traffic like over an hour just to go 3 miles. I counted once. So yeah, our traffic, horrible in cities, but here, everything flows, and they have wide lanes of traffic, and yeah, just lots and lots of infrastructure that flows really well.
And I do believe they have put more thought, even on the side of the freeway, they have ornaments, and in Seattle it's just like gray, boring, no polish, no finish,
Yeah.
nothing. It's just
Or these days it's trash and tents and all that.
that too
But-
isn't here. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, at the very least, yeah, they put a lot of thought not only into the flow of traffic, but also just what you're looking at as you're on the freeways and driving through town. A lot of footbridges. I love that. I love cities with footbridges, so you don't have to deal with crossing, heavy roads of traffic. You can go over it. So yeah, just a lot of really good thought went into planning and designing this city.
The next point was whether this metro area and its surroundings have a lot of things to do. And again, we're looking for what we like to do. We love parks, we love hiking and eating out and all these things, entertainment. And I think that it actually exceeded expectation in this regard.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that, is again, because this is such a bigger city, it's a lot more spread out. So you do have to travel further to get places. There's not necessarily, a core area that you go to. There's many core areas. It's kind of like Portland in that sense. So you do have to, move around more to find all these areas. But because of that, there's just more of them and they're all over the place.
Yeah, there's mountains within the city. There's mountain in each direction. There are rivers nearby. There are many, many little parks. Each of them have ponds that they've put fish in. We found an amazing bird park, which was one of our favorites. So many birds. That was pretty incredible. So all in all, in 3 weeks here, we never really once felt bored.
Yeah.
We never once were like, oh my God, we don't have what to do. And other places we have been, for example, Hawaii, you very quickly in like a week you start running out and you get the island fever. I feel that way in a small place too. For example, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. After a week, I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, here it's like we left things on our list of like, oh, we didn't get to it this time, but that's okay. I have a huge list of, hikes I want to do, places we want to go to that we never even got to in our 3 weeks here. So yeah, that's a good feeling for us. Like we like, a lot of places to keep exploring. And I think that's one of the problems with Seattle is that it's felt too small for a long time and we've explored every little inch of it and we're ready for somewhere that, has more opportunities to explore that are closer to home.
The next point we wanted to investigate was whether this place has a good economy. And we saw, for example, what they're doing in Tempe, which is a very, very nice corporate center. You can see prominent corporations building brand new offices, and it's growing. And then we went to the mall nearby called the Tempe Market, and that was just completely popping.
Yeah, I think, you would think that Phoenix maybe has all of like the downtown headquarters and all the businesses, and there are some, but I feel like Tempe was actually more modern. There were more companies I recognized that were in Tempe. So that's kind of, where a lot of the economy is. And also there's a lot of education, like so many schools we've passed, just like beyond ASU and, some of the big ones, there's just all kinds of little schools all over the place. So that's good because that means that there's more employment, there's more education, and that probably attracts more employers to be closer to those students.
Yeah, another massive industry here is obviously tourism with, I think, among the most resorts per capita in the USA or something like that, the concentration, golf courses everywhere, hotels, everything. And the other side of the valley, there was a huge business park where Boeing was and a whole bunch of other things. Amazon was there. And so, yes, this is a place where companies are actively building it up. And you will find employment if you have a good skill set here. And another point is that in Seattle, it seems like all the retail is totally dead. At least the types of business you do in person at this point just don't exist. And so many parts of town are boarded up. This is not the case here. You go around and it's thriving. Everywhere there's customers, it's lively.
Another point that was pretty important to us was governance. And granted, we still don't really have the best sense. Like, we don't really know exactly what to say about that. We're still doing our research. But at the very least, I'm actually attracted to the fact that Arizona is a swing state.
Yeah, it's way more in the middle, truly. And also, this way, they actually have to work for your vote. Well, where we live, it feels like they don't even bother anymore. Yeah. It's just like my way or a highway, and everything really shows it because when you walk around here, it's clean, it's maintained, and so on. While in Seattle, it just looks like a dump, like straight up. And the last and final and probably biggest point of all is the weather. And we have been here for 3 weeks, and it's been paradise. However, you have to say that it is the coldest part of the year that feels like paradise.
It's colder than we thought. I feel like we both brought a lot of shorts and we never wore our shorts in the entire 3 weeks we've been here. So it's not, Hawaii summer weather or Hawaii winter weather, I should say. But it does get a little bit colder here, which we actually like. I would like a place that's not, super hot year round. So I actually appreciate that they have a winter. But the problem is what a lot of you said in your comments of our last video is the summer. Summer, it gets into triple digits. And I don't know about you guys, but I like 80s and 90s. If it gets to be over 100, that's just no-go.
Yeah, so then you start listening to people that have lived here, and they just have this anxiety to them about the summer. And you look into the climate chart, and you see how 6 months we're gonna probably enjoy a lot, and then 2 months we'll probably cope with, but then there are 4 months that look like absolute hell. And when I say that, it's like every single day the average is like 110 plus. And so, yeah, sure, in the months where it's 95, we'll cope with it. But when it gets to 4-month block of 110, it really has us kind of scared.
Yep. And our original logic was that, well, Seattle has 6 to 8 months of really crappy weather. But the thing is, it doesn't rain all the time there like people think. There's usually a break in the weather where you can go outside. You can, at least wear a rain jacket and go for a walk. You can go find snow in the winter. But when it's 100 plus degrees out, like there's just no relief. All you can do is air conditioning, and we don't really like that idea.
So yeah, you would be confined for 4 months straight from morning to night. You can never do anything outside for more than 5 minutes until you start sweating like crazy and literally start dying.
Yeah.
And that really has us thinking what the right choice is now. With all these things together, we like so much about this place. However, we do feel quite afraid of the hot season.
Yeah, and from the sound of it, we're right to be afraid of that. So, when you start thinking about it, it's like, well, a lot of people already do this, where they snowbird. They come down to Arizona for, the winter, like what we're doing right now, because winter is fantastic. And then when, the summer hits, they go back up north. A lot of people do that from Seattle to Arizona already. So, yeah, that would probably be the ideal situation. But when you think about that, the biggest challenge is having your source of income secured. So either you're retired and you're kind of on a fixed income, or you have a job that is flexible to let you leave for that period of time.
That's right. So with that said, our decision has been that if we are able to make our income remote, then we will very seriously consider living here part-time, whether it's 6 or 8 months or so, or 4, and then try to live in another place for the rest of the time. And that means our top priority now, being already in Seattle, will be exactly that. And if we are able to live in 2 places in the same time, this is a very, very strong contender, and definitely will be coming back in future winters, and if not anything else.